forgotten. This is Harbor Town. Harbor Town is an all-new series from Miniature Building Authority, the leader in tabletop gaming scenery. Unique, flexible, and playable, Harbor Town will take your games to a new destination.
You know what? It would be nice if I turned my mic on, right? There, how's that? Okay, my bad. Let's start over. Wow. Boom. Silly me. My mic was off. Okay, I'm J.K. Lorgazon, but sorry, Roxafarius. I apologize. All right. So back in the day, Player's Handbook 2, where we started. Player's Handbook 2 was good for... I'll not do a quick synopsis. Player's Handbook 2 was good. It had some new Necromancer spells in it. Gave you some ideas for doing some changes and additions to the game from first edition, but it really didn't go into any detail on specialty spellcasters. When the additional books came out, in particular, thanks, man. Sorry about that. And we'll skip through here again. We go to the Tome of Magic. Here we go. Tome of Magic's where it starts. This is the softbound version and the hardback version. And there's a one-page blurb in the Tome of Magic on Elementalist, page 9 and some on page 10 on Elemental Magic, and it kind of intrigued me when we first were like trying to expand on the spellcasters, trying to get them to just to be something beyond they were getting stale like clerics, and that's why we went into and did the specialty priests. So what we had to figure out was, could we do this? Could we do this with the way we did? We were doing specialty priests, where we would take and have these guys have somewhere under on lists. And in here it says it's not a school under itself. It's an area of specialization, just focusing on air, earth, fire, and water. And we said that to start off, we went with just the 4 of them. And the idea was, well, there's some things in here that I didn't like right off the bat. And I didn't like the way they did spheres on, like, Illusionists now. Illusionists could cast, they had an opposition that they couldn't cast, but everything else they could cast, and it really confounded, it made Illusionists lose their flavor, and it just is like, we didn't like it that way. I noticed this in the Elementalists as well. They had, well, if you're fire elementalist, you can't cast water, but you can still cast air and earth. And we're like, why? And the only reason I can fathom from that is because there just weren't enough spells. Because there's a fireball, and there's flaming sphere, and there's flame arrow. There's not enough spells per level. So what were we going to do to remedy this situation? And the simple answer is find more spells, right? And that wasn't that much of a problem. We'll get into that in a second. But so the idea is here in the Tome of Magic on page 9, but it's really not fleshed out that much, and it's very basic, and it's once again one of those mishmash spell casters that they had in second edition, where you had maybe 1 or 2 things you couldn't cast in spheres, and we're like, now we want this to be truly specialized. And I noticed another thing was. That we had was summoning spells. I mean, you had monster summoning 1, 2, 3, right? You had those, but you didn't have specific. I mean, you had conjure elemental, but it didn't mean anything. All right, so I can make an elemental. But now with the Elementalist, it gave us a whole new level of different types of summoning spells and more really cool specialty spellcasters, which is what we're looking for, like the combat mage type. So what we did was, we took it and came up with a set of rules, which I'll share with you here. And we worked out this chart. All right. So we have a chart on Elementalists. Now I know this is going to be very difficult to see, but like I said, I am here to help anyone create a class, help you with ideas. So I'm always willing to share stuff with anyone. Just remember that. So, anyone out there tonight? I see Roxafarius on. I see Tom on. Thanks a lot. I see a couple other people. Thank you all for hopping on. I really appreciate it. So, really appreciate the... like I said, normally I have someone who's... S and S isn't D and D. Well, it is. It doesn't matter if it's D&D or not. So, okay. Well, that's your. We've been doing this for. This is my 28th show, so we've been doing this for a while, and I'm going to tell you what these books are all about. It's out. The books I'm showing are the books that we use to compile the Elementalist category. Yeah, I know, because this is a show concerning 1E, 2E, Dungeons and Dragons, dude. So no problem, man. And so we got our Elementalist. All right, got the basic rules on it. It's a hybrid class. They're not allowed to multi-class. We don't let them dual class. You got elves are allowed to be them, half elves and humans. Quite a lot of our guys had a want to know about dark elves, and I said, well, I think dark elves make complete sense. So we do have some dark elf player characters in the campaign. Obviously, a couple, dozen of them, and we have one who's a specific Earth Elementalist. So dark elf, it's elf, half elf, human. You got they get an extra point, so it's 2 to 5. Plus, they have a con minimum of 15, so they're actually going to get. They're going to start out with like 6-7 hit points, which is a little bit better than your 4 on your mage. Remember, these guys cannot multi-class or dual class, so they're not going to get any enhancements from fighters or any of that stuff. What we did was this, which was different from what was in the Tome of Magic to start out. We said there's the 4 basic classes. Now we went to 6 spheres. Air, Earth, Fire, Water. Let's start with them. Air. Let's do the basic one everyone knows. Fire Elementalist can only cast spells that are fire elemental spells in addition to your general magic user spells. No air spells at all, right? So no Stinking Cloud, for example. No earth spells at all. So what would be one? Maximum is Earth and Grass. No Rock to Mud. No water spells. So you got no colds. You got no ice storms. You say, well, that limits you a lot. Well, you need to open up your how we develop, where you get your spells from, and that's where the books come in, and that's where. Do you remember last week when we showed you the list? For anyone who was watching on Specialty Priest, where we had this pile. Well, here it is. In addition to this is the list of books we're going to utilize to plus some other things beyond this to create where we are now with our Elementalists. To wean this book here. All right, so here's our Bible for Elementalists. We have one for Specialty Priests and NPC Specialty Priests. This is our Elementalist Bible. We got tabs in here for all 6 different classes, subclasses, spheres. You got water, air, earth, fire, quasi, and para. They're the 6. So how do you get there? That's a good question. You need to figure out what spells you want to add and what spells you don't, and how your general magic user spells are allowed to be accessed by the Elementalist, because you're going to get a list, and even with all the stuff we've been doing over the last 38 years, I have a running compiled total up in my notebook here of how many. Let's see, we have 92 fire spells over levels 1 through 9. So, I mean, what's that average out over 9 levels? 10. So, is that enough to build a class on? We say no, because remember, these elementalists, they can cast. And if you look down on this here, this is where it is under spell abilities, right? They get a plus 20% bonus to their no spell for spells that are of the elements of the sphere. So, for example, if this was a fire elementalist, burning hands, fireball, they get a plus, up to a 98% max. But any other spell that they that's out of their sphere, that's a general magic user spell, to minus 25% to their no spell. So it's a little more difficult. So your general spells like shield, your image, minor global vulnerability, detect magic, those are going to get a penalty on. A little bit more difficult for them to learn those. So that's the idea on building them, and then you got to figure out a reference point. Where do we start here? And if we look, and how do you know what spell falls in what category? And that's another good question, because some of these reference books, like the Player's Option book, the Tome of Magic, right? They're not, they don't really spell it out for you. They say evocation, right? So you got to figure out where your spells are going to go to what sphere, if a sphere at all. So what you want to do is this, and let me go forward for you on this, and I'll show you something I can do this here. Like I said, I'm solo tonight. Sorry. There you go. Okay. Your elemental spheres. Keywords. I put these together because a lot of these give you an idea of where, and it'll pop up top too, of where spells come from. And these are the keywords in each, like a spell description or the spell name that you're looking for. Like under air, look for air, mist, gaseous, and fog. So fog, cloud, gaseous form. You get it. You get the idea on that. So that's what you're looking for an air. Mist. Mist is a big one. There's a lot of spells that have that phrase in it, and that's another one you want to look for. Under earth spells, earth, iron, sand, and stone. They're the keywords you're looking for in a spell description or a spell name for earth. You have move earth, of course, right? Looking at higher levels, I'm talking about these are spells in just Unearthed Arcana and Player's Handbook. Glass Steel, that's another one. Sink, Earthquake, super high level. Pass Wall, you get the idea on that. Fire's easy. Fire, Flame, Incendiary, Scorch. So Incendiary Cloud, Agonizer, Scorcher would be another. You got to look for those words for a fire sphere spell. Water, a little more convoluted. These start getting convoluted once we get down. Water, cold, acid, ice seem to be the ones where we do it. Now we throw acid in there, and maybe it doesn't belong in there, but we have it in there now. We may eventually take it out, but we have acid type spells in, and there's a lot of them in Great Net spell books and our references. So some dark elf spells as well. Then you get to the two that we added, Quasi and Para. And Quasi is, and you've seen the monsters. There's Quasi Elemental Lightning, the Zaga, the Zegi. They are creatures you consider from radiance or positive material, negative material planes, and lightning, planes of lightning. So they go into the Quasi sphere. So it's basically a lightning and radiance sphere. You may get some spells that have to deal with the heavens or the stars or outdoors at night under the stars, and those spells also fall into the Quasi sphere that we've created. It's really, in my opinion, it's one of the coolest of the six. So those are keywords for that one. And then for Para, the Para spheres, which is, you have stuff that's in between even the Quasi spheres, and there's a mishmash of them, and crystal, ash, dust, salt, smoke, steam, magma, lava, ooze, slime, all Para. All go under that Para elemental. So you think, well, that's really... It creates a cool class, and I'll discuss some of the spells with you. It's really a neat spellcasting class. It has some abilities that really enhance weaponry and can really mess up someone's day. So those are the key search words I would look for. And you're going to run with references, and the reason I throw these sword and sorcery books in, but we use all the references we can. We'll have 3.0 and 3.5s that we're pulling spells from because they're so awesome. Back in, you see a lot of relic and rituals. We went over this book from last week under Specialty Priests. Fantastic spells in there. Hey Jeff, how are you, man? I know Jeff, he's on our VIP list. I know Jeff isn't feeling well. Hope he's feeling better. Appreciate him hopping on. And then you have Welcome Rituals 2, another one that is really a good reference for extra spells. Then you have the next one's this Excalibur reference. It's very rare. It's hard to find. I only have one copy of it. I don't have multiple copies like a lot of the other books, but it's got some good spells in it. It's got some good clerical in it as well. Another reference. There's a fourth book that I really don't pull spells from that much. Welcome Rituals Olympus. It's orange. It's another cool book there to get if you're into the Greek god stuff. But another neat book. And the Book of Eldritch Might is good. They're very thin, these references, but Like the Hallowed Might book from last week for priests, there's a lot of good miscellaneous spells in Eldritch Might and Eldritch Might 2. And then we always, of course, are not, shy about pulling from Forgotten Realms references. So Pages from the Mages is another good reference book, 2nd edition. You can pull some good spells from there. And the Seven Sisters has a lot of great spells in it. For all classes, so it's another rare book to get, but in PDF you should be able to find that book fairly easily as well. With that, you can really pull together a cool list. So why don't we look at one real quickly, and we'll pull out the fire since it's the easiest one. So you got your Fire Elementalist specialty list. Now, of course, I got some handwritten down here because we're always, just like in the specialty priest, we're always adding to these. Okay, so you got 9 levels of spells here, and you got some really neat spells. Like even at first level, there's some cool stuff. I'll say this, all right. So everyone knows there's a reference out there, the Great Net spell book, if you ever heard of it, and the Great Net Elementalist book. They're both out there on the web, and they're a great, fantastic reference for spells created by people from all over the place. I know they were put together in like the early 2000s. The problem is that there's so much content in there. You got to cull. It's going to take you weeks to cull through them. I would start with these references first, then add in some other spells from the Great Net spell book, because it literally, I think it took me a year to get through all these to make sure they're balanced. So, hey Wolf, appreciate you hopping on tonight. Thank you so very much. Hope you have a happy holiday too, man. Thank you so very much for coming on. So you gotta look for those keywords. So a spell, first level, Fire Elementalist, Human Torch. Cool. 3 rounds. Spell causes the wizard and all his clothing to become engulfed in flames. Those flames do not harm the wizard or his equipment, but cause 1d4 points of damage to anyone within 5 feet, which is melee range. Pretty neat. You're getting attacked by 3 or 4 goblins. You immolate yourself, right? And an additional 1d6 to anyone who actually touches him. So anyone who actually hits him in a fight is going to get another 1d6. Neat spell. It only lasts 3 rounds, but it's first level. Cool. Hey, there you go. There's a spell that you found that is different. You know? Heat Feet, 2nd level. Spell causes the affected creature's footgear to become very hot, blistering the victim's feet. Because of this, the victim fights with a -2 to hit, +2 to his armor class penalty, loses dex bonuses, and moves at 5/6 of his normal. So it's kind of like the hot foot deal, you know? Like they're walking on the sand, you know. I mean, it's pretty neat. Reduction in movement lasts until the blisters have healed. Duration is only 1 round per level, so it's a 2nd level spell. 3rd level spellcaster cast, it's only lasting 3 rounds. So some cool low level spells you can find. Neat stuff. Let me go over here to my reference and take a look. So you got your fire elementals. Everyone thinks, oh, he's going to be throwing fireballs all day. Well, that's not the case. You have some spells like Melix's Fire Mouth, where you're actually breathing fire out of your mouth. Neat. One of the coolest spells, and we leveled it up 2 levels from Forgotten Realms, Agonizer Scorcher, where you comes out of your finger, raises a scorching ray on someone, and you can actually move that and intersect other people. We made that 4th level because it's a nasty spell. That's in the Fire Elementalist list. Let's see here. And then Avasar's Flaming Weapon, that's 5th level. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's another neat spell. Here's one, Sarius's Fire Giant Manifestation. So basically you're taking you're actually summoning almost like a shadow image of a fire giant and to do your beckoning. That's a 6th level spell. So Delayed Blast Fireball, everyone knows that one. That's 7th. Incendiary Clouds 8th. There's a ton of spells on here. So you get a little bit of a different feel. You get a specialization for fire, but you can still get your miscellaneous mage spells. Now, Magic Missile is considered a miscellaneous mage spell. It's not we don't have a force mage, so you can cast that. They can cast Magic Missile. They can cast all the basic spell needs: detect invisibility, protect you from missiles. Those spells you can always get them, but at a penalty. So, and there you go. So they're at a penalty to learn them of 25%. So if you're, have your intelligence minimum, I think, of 17. So why is someone from Texas calling me right now? That's weird. So bizarre. Probably one of those middle of the day, middle of the night people looking for you get them on your cell phone now. It's crazy. So that way you can build a spell list up. But what I like about Elementalist is it's beyond the monster summoning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at 4th level, and there's a spell called Conjure Elemental Kin, and that is a spell that summons, and it depends on what you are. So air, earth, fire, water. Conjure Elemental Kin. If you're an air, it summons a sylph. Earth, a peck or a sandling. Fire, a fire snake. And water, near it, a water weird. So it's kind of like a mini lesser elemental, and that's at 4th level. It's called Conjure Elemental Kin. Now that's right in the player's option book that was so vital to us last week for clerics. That's actually in this book here. So it's right in the 2nd edition reference. Another good spell to do summoning. And then the main spell that you see for casters in this is Conjure Elemental. That is the spell that it's 5th level, and you'll be able to conjure the elemental of the type that you want, that you're part of. So a fire elemental, obviously, for fire. Earth elemental list can cast the summon of the earth elemental all the way down, and that will create a decent, a very, when you're talking about, is that 16 hit die at that, or 12? I think it's 12 hit die. Okay, 12 hit, no, 16 hit die, I believe, elemental at that at 5th level. It's 128 hit points. It's kind of a nasty summoning, and every one of the 4 main elemental spheres get that spell, and just get, so it's called a general elementalist spell, and but it's yours: fire, air, earth, water. Now there's a lot of other spells that all those 4 main ones have the same spell, but it's based on. That's a good question, Rox. I'm going to get to Quasi. That's a good question. I have that here because Quasi and Para are a little different. So good question, because they have specialty stuff made up, and we'll talk about those two because they're separate. So there's a spell called Fist of the Element. It's 5th level. Those 4, the 4 main ones have it, and it creates a big fist in the air of whether it's fire, whether it's air, earth, water, and the problem with that spell is the spellcaster has to control it, and then it attacks, it's a nasty attack with it, and it lasts I think it's a round per level. Let me check that. So that is it's a nice main combat spell. Should have it right here. Fist of the Element. It's under fire. It does a fair amount of damage. Here it is, Fist of the Element. 1 round per level, and based on the caster's intelligence, it adds damage to it. So the minimum of 17, so that's +1 damage. But when it hits, it does 2 die 10. If you're on an opposed element when you're fighting with it, say you're fire and you're attacking something, water does 4 die 10. So and the fire will do fire damage to a fire-based creature still because of impact damage. So that's a cool spell, and they all 4 of those get that. So yes, Tom. Hey, what's up? Kind of like Bigby, man. Absolutely. So it is you got it, and I'm glad to see you hop on. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it's like. It's like Bigby, man. So make sure you do your thing too, Tom. Good to see you on. I know everyone's running around tonight. Tom was on last week, but couldn't make it on this week due to everyone's got holiday commitments, man. So I'm just glad that I made it on myself here. So but we want the show must go on, right? So that's what you have with Fist of the Element, and so you get the idea on the 4 main ones. You have And if you look down here, okay, there's some cool extra abilities they get. They get a save on spells cast on them from the specialization element of +2. So if someone casts a fireball at them, a fire elementalist, or whatever spell, they get +2 on the saves. But if someone casts a water spell on them, they're at -2 on the save. Okay. Now here's the cool thing: the quasi is even worse. Quasi and para, because they're really not unopposed, they get the +2 from a lightning bolt if you're a quasi, but they save at -1 from all the 5 other spheres. So if someone fireballs them, they get -1 on their save. So it leads to a lot of big fights out there between elementalists in our game, and I like playing a lot of bad guys. If anyone watched a couple weeks ago the adventure before last, where Elemental Evil in the Lort Mills, where the Reborn went into the Lort Mill Mountains to fight all the Frost Giants. The Frost Giants had a specialty Elementalist, and he was basically a super specialist. He had only ice spells for the most part. Guns of Cold, he summoned a Para Ice Elemental. He did a lot of things. So I like bringing up specialty class spellcasters against the party, and I remember Tom's character cast the Wall of Fire, which really messed up his elemental, and that's kind of where you get those opposed elemental spheres fighting each other, which is kind of cool. And you get a lot of summoning. In our game, I got to have plenty of elemental figures and other different things, because there's a lot of those specialty spells being summoned in the game, and because I encourage it. So you have some other things here, which is really neat. Once per day, they may cast a spell if 1 to 4 levels higher for determination of effects, range, damage, the whole deal. So if you're a 9th level fire elementalist and you cast your fireball that day at 1 to 4 levels higher, you could cast up to a 13th level fireball, which is really, when you think about it, pretty devastating on targets, and pretty devastating on anything. So you can see that happen a lot, and sometimes they don't. You got to figure out, when do I want to cast my spell at 1 to 4 levels higher. I mean, because it's a duration thing too. If you want your duration to go on some special spell, maybe that's what you pick. So okay, I know I've jumped around a lot. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? I'm going to move over to the quasi and the para in a second, just to show you how specialty they are and how they came about. But those are the 4 main ones, and there's a lot of there's a lot of spells that are really, you wouldn't even think about. Wow, that's an air spell, or that's a cloud kill. So you're not having a fire elementalist casting cloud kill. Cloud kill is definitely an air elementalist spell. Another one would be Stinking Cloud, obviously. Gust of Wind. They're all air sphere spells now. No, this doesn't affect regular mages. It doesn't affect those at all. This is just in terms of elementalists. So your spells are limited in your combat spells, but your general spells, you still get them. Water, they're obvious. Cone of Cold, Ice Storms, your big spells. Luke's Freezing Sphere. Those spells now go over to, they're in the water elemental sphere, so fire elementals isn't going to be casting them either. So, kind of neat when you think about it, and creating a spell list is not that difficult once you get the hang of it. So, like, fire has 92 spells, and water has 88 spells right now of levels 1 to 9, and when you supplement that with all the miscellaneous spells you have, Tensor's Floating Disc, you know what I'm talking about, Vocalize, all the way down through those levels, it gives you a big total of spells that an elementalist can cast. So they're not limited to just this list. Now they do get a bonus spell at first level. It's just 1 extra. It's because of the combat nature of them. So they start out with 2 first instead of 1 in 1st, 2nd edition. But they are definitely going to be looking for spells that, for items that give them more spells, better saves, because they're going to be going toe to toe with. They're going to be major targets of archers. They're going to be major targets of enemy fighters. They're going to want defensive spells like, a fire elementalist want to get a fire shield. There's a thing for Warrior Elementals called Hydro Shield. So there's a lot of different, prep up defensive spells that are available for that capability. So Quasi now. Let's get to the Quasi. All right. So I didn't like that Lightning was just on its own, and this is going back, I don't know how, 20 years maybe a little less than that. So I just didn't like Lightning didn't fall in any category. So we're thinking to ourselves, well, there are enough Lightning only spells. I said, I don't know, probably not, but if we look through the Great Net Spellbook and maybe make it Radiance as well, combine the two, we can get to the Quasi-Elementalist. And so it kind of is like that falls outside of... I was like, why do they have a Quasi-Elemental Lightning and Zyga, Zygi? Why do they have... it's like maybe they were thinking about going there and just didn't. But so the Quasi-Elementalist has a lot of pretty cool and unique spells. In particular, summoning is a little different. So I put this name out there, and I don't know if we'll ever figure out who he is or if we'll ever find him, but this gentleman named Jason Nelson in the Great Net Spellbook is under the Spellcaster Alpha. So a lot of these spells are Alpha spells that come and they fit perfectly into what a Quasi-Elementalist does. So Rox asked about summoning. So we'll go to the Quasi tab. And they get some different spells. Like 3rd level, they get what's called a Conjure Lesser Radiance Quasi-Elemental spell. And that is at 3rd level. And so that spell is really cool because it gives you options on the table. There we go. So with this, the spellcaster can freely summon one or more Lesser Radiance Quasi-Elementals. So on a 1 to 10, on a 100, they get 2 2-hit die, 11 to 50, 3 2-hit die, 51 to 80, 2 4-hit die, and 81 to 100, 1 6-hit die. And they do different damage based on their hit dice. So you actually can get a little bit of a larger, stronger one as you go higher up in your levels. And that's a 3rd level spell. Now, Alan's character, Missioner Starlight, the one who had the comment at the beginning if you were watching, he casts this spell a lot, and also casts the 5th level spell, the Conjure Elemental equivalent. It's called Conjure Greater Radiance Quasi-Elemental. It's a random table as well, but it's a little different. It's pretty neat. So from a roll of 1 to 65 on a die 100, they can get an 8-hit die Greater Quasi-Elemental, and then the stats are down for them here. They do 4 die 6 on attack. They do some pretty nasty, equivalent of any other kind of elemental. 66 to 85, a 12-hit die. 86 to 95, they can get a Zyga from Monster Manual 2. If you've ever seen what a Zyga is, the Zyga first appeared in the Lost Caverns of Shokanth. It's basically a positive energy. Let me see if I can scan through this real quick. I know there's one here in my pictures. There's a Zyga. Okay? So, and then 96 to 0, they get a 16-hit die, Greater Quasi-Elemental. So they have a little bit of a different of summoning spells. They also have Alpha's Rainbow Warrior at 6. That summons like a Radiance Warrior for you. It's a really cool class because it gives you a lot of neat spells that really do severe damage to undead, number one. Like I said, in the earlier discussion, in the front screen said, yeah, I pop undead like blood sausages. Well, that's the case, because you get spells like Alpha Sparkle Beam. That's 1st level, but I think it does max damage on dead. You get like their Energy Beam's another one at 1st. There is a 2nd level spell, Shock Sphere, which is basically a targeted spell, but then it radiates out and it does a mini ball lightning. They do get ball lightning at 3rd, and in addition to lightning bolt. So there's a lot of spells in theirs that do damage not only to undead, but do extra damage to armored warriors as well, wearing a lot of metal armor, and they get minuses on their save. I believe like a spell like Alpha Sheet Lightning at 4th level I think it's either -2 or -4 in their save versus it. It's basically almost like a storm of lightning comes. And let me go to that real quick. Alpha Sheet Lightning, 4th level. Area effect is range is 30 yard, 10 foot per level long square. So 10 foot per level. So if you're 9th level casting it, it's 90 by 90. So think about that. And it does 44 electrical, but also those carrying large metallic weapons or wearing partial metal armor, chain and up, they get minuses on their saves and pluses on damage to them. So a lot of those electrical spells do more to armored creatures as well as undead. So there's also a cool spell that they have because of the radiance. It's called Continual Invisibility. It's 4th level, a little different than the way standard invisibility 10-foot radius works. They can become visible and still the spell doesn't break, and then go back to being invisible over a period of time, and it lasts I think it's a crazy amount, like 3 turns. So going back and forth between being visible and invisible. They can be invisible, move somewhere, cast a spell, become visible, still have the spell in effect, and then go back and go back to being invisible. So that's a pretty neat spell as well. So the Quasi-Elementalist is a favorite of those who think they're going to be fighting undead, going against that type. So you have in our new group of firsts, you have Darius McManus, which is one of Walt's. He has a brother-sister combination. His sister's going to be an undead hunter, which is a subclass of paladin in our game. That and he's going to be the quasi-elementalist. So the brother and sister, it's almost like a Hansel and Gretel thing that Walt's doing. So we'll have a new quasi-elementalist in our new group of first on Thursday night. That's the only one we're going to have. We're going to have a second Earth Elementalist that Alan's going to play, but he's changing that to a new Greyhawk Mage we're play testing. So that's kind of the gist on the Quasi-Elementalist. Hopefully, Rox, I explained that to you. It's kind of a very, very neat. It's got its benefits. Also, another thing, they can recharge their spells overnight a lot quicker with a spell called Alpha Star Powered Magery. So if they're outside at night in the open sky, actually they can use the heavens as a way to recharge some of their spells instead of studying for them. They get some more spell levels back that way. Neat stuff on the Quasi-Elementalist. So we created that because we wanted to get lightning into the combat spheres. It works really well. It's great against undead. But then, I guess it was probably 10 years ago. That's how long ago it was. My friend Tim, I still think he was in the military. He hadn't gotten out yet. He came up with another idea, and he's like, there's two. There's the Great Net Spellbook and the Great Net Elementalist Spellbook. I may have both, Rock, so if you want to text me your email, I could probably send them to you. All right, I think that the Great Net Spellbook goes back almost to 2001. The Elementalist one, I think, goes back to 2010 or before. But I'll send them to you. I have no problem sending them to you. So he's like, I always liked Crystal Brittle. I thought it was a great spell, but it's 9th level, so no one ever gets to cast it. And I was like, you got a point. So he goes, I'm going to go make up some spells that involve crystal, and then we'll see what to do with them. I said, okay, cool. So he comes back with all these great spells here that are nowhere else but with us. And so here you go. So he came up with some really cool things. Prisms of Wondrous Refraction, Radiant Glare, Spray of Sodium, Crystal Wall, Sodium Cloud, Purify Ore, Radiant Blade, Crystalline Missiles. It's kind of like the staple of this class, this sphere. Kind of like a magic missile, but pretty nasty 2nd level. Create Crystalline Entity, Oxidized Metal, Radiant Mist. So he came up with a whole bunch of spells that I was really happy he did. And I said, Tim, these really don't fit into. Well, he's like, well, wouldn't they fit in Quasi? I said, no, not. I don't think they do. Crystal is. It's just Crystal, and Quasi's got enough spells. I think these belong in their own category. And I've been working on some stuff. There's this Great Net Elementalist book. I just recently found it. And I said to him, there's in between things that don't fit into anything. I think we create a 6th Elementalist. What do you think? He said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So I looked and I was like, smoke really doesn't belong in air, but there's some smoke spells in there. So there's some crossovers. Steam, slime, ooze, mud, ash, dust. I think we could build something with that. And so what we did was I started putting together a para elementalist for all these para things that fit in between, fire and earth and air. You get dust or you get ash, right? So, hey, Sprocket, how are you, man? Good to see you. Good, you're on, man. Oh, I got to do something for Sprocket here in a second, but so yeah, that was something that we worked on, and we got to keep your things going here. We worked on, and did it fit? Yeah, it did, and we only had 2 so far. But we'll go over some of the over some of the spells, huh? It's not. It says, oh, you're still subscribed. Okay, I don't have to. All right, Sprocket's still on the subscription. Good to see. Those eventually, guys. Those 3-month swords will be hitting 6 months shortly, and we'll have some silver swords out there. So Sprocket's got the wood sword, and then you got the 3-month swords, the copper, and then you'll have a silver sword at 6 and the gold sword at 1 year. So those are our subscriber notations, and then we got some VIP stuff on here for some original entry level people who were hardcore watchers of us early on. The Sprocketeer, the Nazrat. They got them. Of course, Anna Meyer deserves. She's got it, and then a lot of my players. So thank you so very much, Sprocket, for watching. I appreciate it, man, as always. So you have, if I look at these spells, a majority of them are all from the Great Net Elementalist book and my friend Tim. Almost all of them. I mean, Crystal Brittle is obviously not. That's 9th level, and we haven't anyone ever cast it except out of a wand of metal mineral detection. I think we can cast that. But most of these are right out of the Great Net Elementalist book, and some of them are really cool. And I have one of the 2, and Tim has one. So if you know, okay, go ahead. That's a good question, Tom. So we'll diverge real quick there. In a battle royale, who would still be standing the majority of the time? So the archers are going to be shooting at the hardcore spellcasters. The hardcore spellcasters are going to be trying to kill the archers. The priests are going to be trying to heal up everything, and the fighters are going to be going at each other. So my opinion is that it tends to be the targets used, and this is a good question. The targets in these kind of fights with elementalists, and then next week we're going to do dealing at the damage, delving into the damage dealers. We're going to talk about that next week. Hopefully, I'll have some of my guys on next week. They go first because from what I see is the healers aren't targeted. They're targeted last usually, and normally it's the hardcore damage dealers. Everyone goes after the mages, backstab on the mages, and that tends to be the mages, like I said, the archers and the ranged, shooters against them. Those groups tend to take each other out, and then the thieves are sneaking around trying to do the backstab. And you saw what happened last week with the backstab on someone had backstab backlash on, and she got slaughtered. So the thieves once they get visible, they're gone. So I say the healers. Between the elementalists, man, that's tough. I'm going to say Earth elementalists. I'm going to say Earth, and this is why, and you've seen this before, okay? So we'll divulge here real quick. Great question. Earth elementalists. Some of the spells that Earth elementalists have. Stone Skin. We all know Stone Skin. Well, now, none of the other elementalists can cast Stone Skin on them. That negates an entire series of attacks, right? Great spell against backstabs. Great spell against hardcore fighters. So, boom. Sand Skin. Sand Skin that gets put on them, and it basically puts a coating of sand on them. And it's die 8 plus their level in points that absorbs first. They have a lot of things like metal arms, so they can turn their arm into like almost the equivalent of a +5 shield, dropping their armor class 6 spots, when they're 5th level or higher. So, nasty spell there. They have spells like Diamond Blade, so that if they get into a fight, or Claws of the Umber Hulk, they get into a melee fight, they can hold their own a little bit with fighters. Okay? This is just an opinion of mine. So, because if they have those spells that are saving themselves from taking any damage those first couple rounds, right? So they're going to have the advantage over the ones that don't. Because if you're a fire elementalist, you have fire shield and you may have minor glow, but you're not stopping a cone of metal shards at 5th level, right? So that would be it, Tom. Hopefully that would be the answer to it, because I think the Earth Elementalist has the best defensively out of all 6 classes. But great question. I appreciate that, man. And I think you. Once again, Tom is one of my players. He played back in 1987, and then he played on and off, but he came back, and he's back in and having a blast. So thanks a lot, man. So with the Power Elementalist again, just at first level, Healing Touch of Salt. After casting a spell, the caster touches the subject. The spell's energy then seals all of his bleeding wounds, even if they were caused by a sort of wounding. We know how many wounding weapons we have in our game, a lot. By creating a thin layer of salt on their surface. Due to the salt stinging, the recipient will suffer -1 on its hit rolls over the next 1 to 4 hours while the wounds close. Duration is permanent. First level, great spell. Getting rid of, we have wounding weapons all the time, so a great, just simple first level spell. Wow, that's cool, right? Something different. Salt. Here's another salt spell I love. First level, Salty Wounds. The recipient will have small crystals conjured into his wounds. There's the same door does negate on this. The recipient suffers -2 to his hit rolls and -2 penalty to his armor class. You must have wounds for this to take effect, but it's basically a serious stinging, right? Another cool thing. Now, my power uses this spell a lot. Sharp Edge. So this is like almost like a mineral spell. The caster touches a weapon. The spell grants it sharpness that can otherwise only be available to weapons crafted by skilled weaponsmith. So it causes 1 extra point of damage for 1 round per level of the caster, but it's 1 weapon per 2 levels. So if you're 8th level, you can do that on 4 weapons. So you can do that on 4 of your main fighters and just all give them an extra hit point of damage on their weapons. Pretty cool for a first level spell. Soot Ball, another good first level spell for a Power Elementalist. Creates a 10-foot radius sphere of soot in a cloud. 1d4 points of damage for every odd level of the caster. The soot also blinds those in the area for 1 to 2 rounds. It's a range of 20 feet. It's a 10-foot radius, so it's a lot smaller than a Fireball. Fireball's 30-foot radius. This is only 10-foot radius. A successful save will half the damage and prevent blindness. So, figure if you're 5th level, casting a Soot Ball, you do 3d4. Hey, it's the same as a magic missile, right? But you're doing a 10-foot radius on some things. It's a friend or foe, but you can blind them too. So, neat spell. And that's just first level. And then you get to some of the higher level spells, like 4th level. We'll go to that. Freicht, F-R-E-I-C-H-T, Iron Spears, 4th level. Another spell I like a lot too. Fourth level. This spell causes the area affected to be smitten with iron spears that fall and disappear to wherever they came from. Any creature in the area of effect is hit by 1 to 3 spears that inflict 1d10 damage each. The material components, a bit of iron and dust for a gem worth at least 10 gold pieces. Area effect 60-foot radius. Range is 10 yards per level, and this is a 4th level spell, so you have to be minimum of 7th to cast it. So you're looking at 70-yard radius. That's 70 yards range. That's 210 feet, 60-foot radius. 1 to 3 spears to everyone, friend or foe in the area. Fantastic 4th level spell. Lava Wave. The range is 10 yards per level as well. It does a 20 by 40 rectangle or 30-foot square. The spell is similar to Lava Bolt, except it conjures a wave of molten lava over a given area. So it does 1d6 per 2 levels of the caster. Another cool thing. And so the idea is... And there's also slime spells, and there's, the crystal spells that Tim... let me discuss Tim's main contribution, which is the crystalline missile spell. 2nd level, range is 50 foot plus 5 feet per level. Creates sharp crystalline missiles that shoot forth and strike the target. The caster creates 1 missile per level and can divide the missiles among 1 target for every 3 levels. Damage is 1 to 4 per missile. So it's auto hitting. Okay. So you can actually move it around like a magic missile. And you get 1 per level, 1d4. So it's kind of like, it's the Elementalist magic missile spell, but it's a 2nd level spell. So, and that was my friend Tim, who comes on occasionally, but due to his commitments, he hasn't played in a while. He's out of the military now. He's an old guy like us, like Tommy and the rest of the crew, but his character Crystal Ion, who's a child of Skeeve. There's a big story about Skeeve in our world. Super high level mage. It's one of his 2 children, and she is a para elementalist. She's one of 2 in the campaign. So thanks for yes, absolutely. It's a great, absolutely Inquisitor. Tom has an Inquisitor. You saw him last week. Desmond, and he also Salt in the Wounds would be perfect for an Inquisitor trying to get information out of someone. I agree 100%. So here's, I'd like to ask, does anyone have any other questions? There's a lot more for me to go over here, but I just want to get to a stopping point. I want to show you some of the books and where to get them, to get spells out of them. We'll go over that in a second, but anyone have any other specific questions they want to ask? Or like some other spells. When you get to the super high levels, you get like at 9th level spells. When you're talking about if you want to play an ultra high level campaign, the main ones can conjure an elemental lord. So if you go through your listing here at 9th level, and you're an air elementalist, you can conjure Yan Si-Bin at 9th level. If you're Earth Ogremok at 9th level, if you really want to incline to do so. So that's at 9th level. It's called Conjure Elemental Lord. So, if you're that level and you want to conjure these bad guys and see what happens, so be it. Because if you notice on this thing, control, even at 15th level, there's no constraint needed for control, but there's no turning on. Elemental Lords are excluded from that. They may turn on you. So, yes. So, have at it if you want to conjure an Elemental Lord. There is a Quasi-Elemental Lord here on the Quasi-Elementalist. Let me see if I put one on Para. I don't think I did. I didn't put one on Para, because Para has stuff all over the place as far as summoning goes. 3rd level, Vanar's Clay Creatures is like their first cool summoning spell. It's really a neat spell. So what it does is you can cast, and you can basically make shit out of clay, right? You have 4 hit die to play with, so you can create 4 1-hit die creatures, 2 2s, a 3 and a 1, or a 4th, and then you can sacrifice a hit die to give them a special ability and stuff. So it's a neat spell. It lasts 2 rounds plus 1 round per level. My Paralemental's Varalymwin uses it occasionally. She wants to create like a guardian for her. She'll create a 4-hit die 1. If she wants to stop an influx of things coming, she may create 2 2-hit die clay creatures or 4 1-hit die clay creatures, depending on the situation. So you have that flexibility in the spell. So it's a neat one too. So, any questions so far? I said, I know it's a lot to go through, and the cool thing is you know where to find me, and you know where I will help anyone create something from scratch, some ideas they have. Always will do that. So let's talk about the reference materials now. We've gone through some of them, but some of these books may be a little more difficult to find. And I know someone's busting my balls earlier about, it's a sword and sorcery book, but it's D&D, man. It's third editions of 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. So let me get through here and scan through. You really need to have your second edition Tome of Magic. Okay, you need to have that for base references, to have all your spells and your main firsts. Second edition Player's Handbook. You're gonna need that, and you're gonna need your original Player's Handbook and Art Arcana for your main spell list. So they're your 4 base core ones for this to start on building an Elementalist from scratch. Then obviously your Player's Option book has a lot of good spells in it, so you're going to need this as well. And if you're doing this, if you're doing hardcore second edition and first edition, you want to make specialty priests, so you want to have this book, the Player's Option book, no doubt about it, for just alone for the specialty priests and all the different spheres in there. So that's a must-have. Beyond that, Greyhawk Adventures is good. Now, here's something we don't do. Because these spells are so specialized, in here, the Greyhawk Adventures book, I don't know what did I do with it? It's probably in my pile. The Greyhawk Adventures book, we do not take those tensor spells and Nistal spells and all that. We don't put them into the Elementalist spheres because we like them to be named, what's called a name mage spell list. So we don't put them in there. Okay? But you could add them if you wanted to, some of them, especially the Nistal spells to Radiance. They have a lot of them, like Nistal's Flash, Nistal's Blazing Beam. That you could put them into the... But we don't, because we like to keep them as a separate entity for what we're doing with the Greyhawk Mage. Player's Handbook 3, vital to have. There's some spells in it, not many. There's a couple spells that are a little different. And then these are the big ones here that I got my balls busted for, but who cares? Here we go. And that is these, I love the Sword and Sorcery Necromancer game stuff. Welcome Rituals 2, and the Excalibur books. You probably find them in PDF, no problem. This black one I see on eBay all the time for like $5. The other two are a little more difficult to find. The Welcome Rituals 2, Lost Lore, and the Excalibur book, but they are all have fantastic spells in it for both clerics, specialty priests, and all different types of spellcasters. You could be for days reading the content out of here. It's different. It's got a little different flavor to it, and we run with it. We really do. And then another book is the Eldritch Sorcery book. Has a lot of spells in it, a lot of necromancy-based spells, but it has some really cool spells that aren't necromancy-based. So let me give you an example here. Eldritch Sorcery. We'll go to Quasi. I know there's a Quasi spell in here. It's Eldritch Sorcery. Lightning Wheel. Okay, Lightning Wheel. It's a 4th level spell. Page 83. Go to that and see what it says. Lightning Wheel. So, a 3-foot diameter disc of crackling lightning appears at your fingertips, awaiting your command to strike. You may direct it through the air toward the target, or allow it to hover and place next to you. As a standard action, you may direct it to strike a single target. Streaks toward the target, moving fast, past cover, around items or creatures in its way to strike, doing 1d6 points of electricity per level, followed by a loud clap of thunder. Okay, so it's 1 round per level or till discharge. So it's basically a spinning lightning bolt next to you that you can use for defensive purposes, or you can have it precast, delay it, and then send it out. Kind of a neat spell, and that is 4th level. So that's just one spell out of the Eldritch Sorcery book. So another good one. And then you have your other miscellaneous spell books that I discussed. The Eldritch Might book, the Eldritch Might 2 book. Okay, both of those are great. Like I said, all these should be available in Drive-Thru-RPG for pretty nominal amounts. Pages from the Mages is great. Forgotten Realms. He said, I don't mind ripping off spells from Forgotten Realms, because trust me, you all know that Forgotten Realms is ripped off Greyhawk. I mean, they got a thing out called Morning Canaans, whatever, right? That's Greyhawk, right? Tensors, all the tensors, it's all Greyhawk stuff. So I don't have any problem ripping back off Forgotten Realms, guys, right? And the Seven Sisters reference is fantastic for spell, a lot of spells in it that are good. Like there's some storm armor spells, Illustrial's Mantle. There's really some great spells out of that as well to help build up your class. That combined with the Great Net Spellbook and the Great Net Elementalist book will get you everything you really need to build from scratch any of these 6 class sphere spells up. And it's fun doing it too. And so let's talk about application of what happens in the game with these. And maybe Tom, if he's still on, could chime in here and there because he's my only. It looks like he's my only player on right now. So, and please feel free to ask questions. I'll stop and answer anything you would like to for me to answer as well. So here's a listing of all, and it's really not that many. I hand jotted it down. All the characters in our campaign, PCs or NPCs that interact, that are elementalists. So I was surprised. I thought there was going to be more of either Earth or Quasi, but there's 3 Earths, 3 Quasis, and 3 Waters. 1 Fire, and that's it. And that was one of the first ones we ever had. 2 Power and 1 Air. And Alan's got the only Air and Fire one. So he's got a Quasi, an Air, and a Fire. So let's talk about one you're going to see a little bit on Thursday. So we'll start there. And her name's Marion Winchester. She's one of the Winchester family. She's a water elementalist. She's in the Order of Ulick, 9th level. She's just become the Knight XO, second in command of the Pomarge Principality Ulick area. There hasn't been one in a long time. Garth Warmonger, Alan's PC, is the head of this area, and he doesn't want her there because he hates mages, right? So if any of you know that, she is come from the city of Altamira to assist. She was in one of the pre-adventures to this new campaign we're starting, and she can deal out some nasty damage. You know, her favorite spell is Vitriolic Sphere. Is a 4th level spell. She loves that spell. It basically puts acid on you and it does a splash area. And every round you fail, it still does dice. So if she's like 9 die 4, take 9 die 4 at first round. If you fail that, next round you guys make a save at 7 die 4. And if you keep on failing, then 5 die 4, 3 die 4. So if you have a bad night on saves, you're going to be taking a lot of damage from it. She loves that spell. Cone of Cold, obviously, at 5th is a spell she likes a lot. Good thing about Water Elementalists, and Mark has character in one of the groups, Ravati. I think she's in the Hiltless Swords out of Hardby. They get spells that help on the seas. So, being a Water Elementalist, she comes and she takes spells that will assist them against sea creatures and helps them, like airy water. So if someone goes overboard, they can breathe. There's a couple others. You think that would be an air? I think that's both air and water. I think it's both. Yeah, that's a crossover, airy water, because it's either or those two. So part water, that's another good one. So there's spells that really can help sea-based adventurers with a water or an air elementalist. So that's where Mark uses his character Ravati a lot in that campaign, and that's a fun group of vagabonds, let me tell you. So let me talk about. Sure, Rox. We'll go back to that. Absolutely. All right. So I'll give you an example of a spell, okay? Because I really want to help you guys out with this because it's. Let me see if I went through here. Wrong one. Legacy. Okay, I'll give you a list of, and I'll put that card back up. So, I try to get one of each spellcaster up. It's kind of hard in picks, but all right. So here we go. Now, like I said, I would more than happy to share this with you. I'm more happy to email this to you. No problem. All right. So, this list here, down here, it's up there. I wish I could. Let me see if I can. It's gonna change. By the time I do this, it's gonna change. Yeah. All right. So, this list here, for example, we'll take a spell. We'll go random to a spell. We'll go to an air spell. It's an illusion spell, but it would fall in the elemental. Solid fog. Okay? Fog. Air. Air, mist, gaseous fog, right? It's going to be in the air sphere. So, stinking cloud, air sphere, right? So you're going to know if it's where your general spells will be. Spells that are protection spells, spells like minor globe of invulnerability. It's not going to fall. It's just going to stay out of elementals completely. Detect magic, shield, magic missile. That's force. Those are the spells you're not going to have to worry about. So when you get to these kind of spells, all right. So here's another spell from that's really a little tougher to see, but Aerial Stalker, right? It's called Death Stalker in here. Aerial Stalker would be another spell that would be an air sphere spell. You could summon one of those, as well, because it's a creature from the air sphere. So that's what you're looking for, your keywords. Wind's another good keyword for air. So like a wind blast, right? Ride the wind. That's another air spell, obviously. Those go into your air sphere. Okay? So let me just flip randomly, boom. Earth. So I have Stone Skin. Earth, iron, sand, stone. Definitely goes into the stone sphere. Definitely. Pass wall. Self-explanatory. You're basically putting a big hole in a wall of stone, right? So that's how you got to think about it. You got to think about what the spell does, too. Glass Sea. That's a spell an old spell right out of Player's Handbook. So you're taking, that's definitely a earth sphere. Glass, sand, right? Okay? Wall of Iron. That's a 5th level spell. And so, hey, Skagath, thanks, man. Hey, thanks for being on, too. Thank you very much, man. Skagath is a great guy. He's another streamer. He's from Sweden, and love what he does as well. And thank you so very much. And that donation, our cheers we use for our donations they go right to Children's Hospital, and that's where that will go. And I always try to match it. So thanks, man. Really appreciate that. You are awesome, dude. So hopefully you're enjoying this discussion as well. I really appreciate it. Let me see. We'll stay in the earth. 3 stones. That's a spell out of the Seven Sisters book. It creates 3 stones, and they go, and you can shoot them off in the different directions. Obviously, earth spell. Maximilian's Stony and Maximilian's Earth and Grasp. They're both out of the Tome of Magic. A hand comes up, and it's made out of stone, and grabs you and tries pulling you underground. That's another. So, Sandstorm, Tom, absolutely. So, and that's a good one. That's a good discussion, because Mark, who couldn't be on tonight, he had a family party he could not get out of, and that's okay. He wanted me to relate the story. He has Melzar, the Dark Elf. And if you guys remember the adventure before last, once again we go back to the adventure with the Frost Giants, Elemental Evil in the Lort Mills. Melzar and Eleutheri are 2 Dark Elves, a male and female. The female is especially priestess of Solinor, an above-ground elven god. And the brother Melzar is kind of a cat-neutral, crabby Dark Elf, but he's an Earth Elementalist. So he always loves sandstorms, and that spell is sand. Obviously, is an Earth Elementalist spell, and it creates basically what you think in the desert, a true sandstorm that's going to limit characters greatly, up to only obscuring vision for light if you get it as a random table, but you can modify the die roll. So on 20-sided die, 0-1 to 0-4 is light, but up to extreme 20. Obscured vision, quarter movement rate, 1d8 hit point per round damage. Save versus death magic, you're choking on the dust for an extra 1d10. And save versus spells being blinded. And you're stuck in it. Your movement rate is very hard to get out of that. No, that's 1/8. I'm sorry, 1/8 movement rate. It's a 50-foot radius. So he did that on a bunch of trogs once, and they were lambasted in there. So don't think of all the spells. Hey, Lurk all you want, Skag, because I lurk on your channel too when I'm working too. So lurk all you want, man. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it, dude. Like I said, keep up the good work with you and Sprocket and all your D&D games you do as well, man. It's awesome. So don't think of it as how much damage can I deal out, but think of it as, man, Earth Elementalist, I think of some great applications for the spells now. They're great defensive spellcasters, but they have spells, and I have an Earth Elementalist. Her name's JJ. Janelle Janish. Okay, now I don't know what I do with my list there on the question. There it is. Okay. There's another one I have. JJ, Janelle Janish. She's out of a group out of Hardby. She's an Earth Elementalist, 9th level. And she casts a spell all the time she takes in a repertoire. I'll give you a thumbs up from I'll give you a Tim crit head for that. Called Stone Bridge. She always takes that. Now, we did an adventure, and Tom remembers this one. We did an adventure, Power Play in Hardby, and they were in a ship, and they found a previous group of adventurers' ship had been destroyed and blown up, and they landed on an island in the middle of, and they had to get to the mainland. Well, JJ had with her the Stone Bridge spell. She got to the edge of the island, cast her Stone Bridge, and it just made it across to the other land. So they didn't have to worry about getting in the water. They got the Stone Bridge up and cast it, and they all ran across it. And that's another cool use for an Earth Elementalist. Neat stuff for that. So think of an Elementalist as, wow, once you get your spells together, different ways, only not just on damage dealing, but on what you can summon, on what you can, summoning an Elemental at 9th level is a powerful thing. One other thing I want to say. Elementals summoned by, and it says 1 turn duration. We don't do that. It's 1 round. They can summon them in 1 round, okay? So on here, when you're summoning your Elementals, it's 1 round on the duration of the spell. And they're there. They're summoned. We don't do that 1 turn for Elementalists. So, yep. Tom remembers that Stone Bridge spell. Absolutely. So you have a cool ability that, and all right. So now here's a question that comes up that I'll answer myself, and that is, well, what about these general spells that womp out a huge mega amount of damage? You don't want them having them. Now, Magic Missile is a universal spell, so I don't have a problem with it. If we ever create a Force Mage, I've been working on it. It's not gotten very far. Just not in my priorities. Then Magic Missile will go there. But there is a spell called Force Ball we have. It's a general Magic user spell, and it's on this excluded list here. Elementalists can't take, or certain general Magic user spells we don't want them to have. Force Ball's 10-foot radius, and it just basically does a boom. It's a mini fireball, but it's only force, so it's really hard to save, have resistance against it, but it's a 10-foot radius. It's not 30-foot radius. That spell Elementalists can't take. It's just a house rule we have, and so be it, and there may be some spells you have in your campaign you think of that you don't want your Elementalists getting hold of. We'll just say you can't take it. It's that simple. That's where, with the Great Net book, spell book, and the Great Net Elementalist book, you need to be very careful. You really need to cull through these spells and make some modifications, and I have done that because some of these are really crazily overpowered. And as a DM and as a campaign planner, you got to get a feel for it. And if you ever have a question on one you find, hey, if you ever come across this spell, I would be more than happy to help you out there too. But there's some spells that are really crazy that I have really toned down or made some changes to. And normally what it'll say is, there's an author in a lot of these. It'll say author, and then it'll say modified by me. Like here's one, Iron Skin, I modified. It says author Rodenbacher, modified by, and I put, it's a comment, Lord Gazumba, Lord, it's right there. And I made some changes to it. I don't remember what the change I made to it. I think this is a super Stone Skin for Earth Elementalists. Yeah, it says this spell has a similar effect as Stone Skin. It attacks 1d6 plus 1 attacks instead of one. My guess is it was like 1d6 plus level attacks. And I said no, so I made it 1d6 plus 1, so it could do 2 to 7 series of attacks, and that's a 7th level spell. So there you go. You gotta figure out balance in your game, and just make some decisions yourself on how you want to go with stuff like that. So getting back to our spellcasters, how's that? Anyone else have any other questions? Cool. Hopefully you guys find this interesting, because we're gonna try and continue going on with this. It's been appreciate the viewers, definitely. It's been fun so far. There are some spells that are generalist spells that are meant for campaign purposes too. 9th level, estate transference. So it's kind of a role play thing. What that will do is take an elementalist when they're super high level. They'll take their keep, their tower, transfer it to the elemental plane of earth, transfer it to the elemental plane of fire, or whatever, wherever they abide by. So it'll transfer their estate to one of the elemental planes where they're more comfortable feeling, or for protection purposes. So that's its 9th level spell. There's a lot of those cool spells in here too that just never get utilized by a general mage. So that's a neat thing too that this class has. I like to see elementalists duke it out, or spellcasters, and we had that happen in the adventure before last. And Tom had the fighter mage, and she did the wall of fire on the ice, the para ice specialty elementalist, and they were going at it, and he was whomping her pretty good with spells. I like to see those kind of combats going on. So the best, most powerful elementals we have in our campaign right now was, if you saw the very beginning of the broadcast, and for those who didn't, I'm going to pop it over here real quick, and here's the quote real quick. One sec. Here you go. Look at the bottom. Alright, so that's Missioner Starlight. That's one of Alan's. He's an 11th level quasi-elementalist. And Jacqueline Titleman, actually the wild mage now that I talk, is an NPC. She's a wild mage. We'll talk about wild mages in some future broadcasts. Wild mages are just as nasty as it can be, just as the elementalists, with a little bit more randomness to it, but they have their own spells too, which is kind of cool. But if there's undead around, he does pop them like blood sausages, because there's spells in the quasi-sphere that really do massive damage on undead, and he's figured it out. So that character going up against vampires, or especially ones that are very susceptible to sunlight, with his radiant spells, he really can tear them up. In addition, his electricity spells tear up armored fighters. So one of the more powerful characters in the campaign is that he's a Grey Elf male. He's a member of the Order of Ulick. His long-term goal, he's from Furyundi. He's from the Valley of the High Folk area. If anyone knows about the campaign, the King of Furyundi has an elementalist of air, earth, fire, and water as his court, and he wanted to become the first quasi to join that court at some point. Well, he needs to be 18th. He's 11th. He's working his way up. But, for the time being, that's a long, we'll be old men by that time, the way our campaign works, So, but he's probably the most powerful elementalist in the game. His other character, Phoenix, a human male, I think he's neutral. He's a fire elementalist. He's 11th. He's more of a stand and deliver kind of guy. Gets into some more trouble. Goes out and just dishes out a lot of fire damage, but it is more of a lot less thought to it, more of I'm just going to blast you out of existence kind of character. And those kind of characters tend to get in trouble sometimes. So that's why I think Missioner's probably the most powerful. He's the highest level elementalist in our game. That's a PC at 11th. We have some of their 9th. Alan has an air elementalist named Whist at 10th. And I'll mention one thing about the air elementalist, which is really cool. So whenever they need to get somewhere, she casts a spell. It's called Pander's Whirlwind Travel. And let me find that in the air elementalist list here. I think it's 4th. It's 4th. Pander's Whirlwind Travel. I'll describe that one real quick. The spell encapsulates the wizard and possibly more people or equipment inside a conjured whirlwind. One or two variations of the spell may be cast. So basically, the long variation of this is for personal transportation or protection. It sends a whole group and it basically puts them in a whirlwind, and they're almost like being not teleported, but the whirlwind's running along the ground, not damaging anything, and sends them off to their location and travels a long distance over time. And the whirlwind also would bounce and reflect spells. So she uses that spell to get the party wherever they need to in a hurry. Kind of cool idea to have for an air elementalist. So once again, instead of flying, you're in a whirlwind, and the whirlwind's taking you to your destination. So it's a neat idea. So a lot of variety between the 6. I don't think we'll go beyond 6 on it. Going back to this card, I think the para covers all the slop, I call it, in there. And we only have 2 paras. We have Tim's Crystal Ion, and then I have a character, Vara Linwin. She's in one of the Harby groups. She's 7th now. Like I said, she likes to enhance weaponry. She likes those weapon spells. She likes the smoke spells, so... Well, that's true. The fireball goes to an area effect spell, but combine the two, and you have the 3rd level spell, Flame Arrow, which that targets a single person and blows up on you. So that's a combination of both, right? That's the best of both worlds on that spell. But absolutely, there are spells for single targets. There are spells for multi. There are spells for defense in all of them. So you have your mix. You have your mix of all different types. And like I said, going at each other is cool. We like doing it. I like to create a situational spellcaster. I had the Para Ice, a super specialist of water a couple of adventures ago as a bad guy. And he really dealt a lot of damage to the party with ice storms and cones of cold. So he summoned Ice Elemental twice, Para Elemental. Ice, and had the figures for it. So I like to do that in my campaigns and my adventures. I like to really give them challenges they haven't seen before. I mean, anyone can make a mage, right? I see mages as we have a lot of dual class mages, especially with humans. So and they can have access to all the big spells in the Art Arcana, and they can do a lot of different things, but if you really want a specialty wizard, that's where the Elementalist comes in. That's why they can't dual class and they can't multi-class, because it's very strenuous, and it's using the elemental forces, not using your old-fashioned, your different schools of magic, and so that's why we have it very limited. With great power, you got to, as a DM, you got to limit things. So that's why we're not allowed. Because if you dual class a fighter or a paladin or a ranger to an elementalist, you're looking at a mega character down the road that you're going to have to deal with. So just my advice is don't allow the dual classing to go on that. So let's see here. Our player, my friend Bill, he has only, and you guys have seen Bill, Mastercrafter Bill, he only has 1 Elementalist in the entire campaign, which I find amazing. Silitha, 8th level Quasi-Elementalist, that's it. Alan tends to be the one who likes to play the Elementalist. I like them as NPCs as well. And Tom, who's getting back into it, maybe getting up some new Elementalists in his repertoire as well. So that's a discussion on the Elementalist. Does anyone have any questions for me on this? I appreciate the viewers on this, but we've got a lot of announcements to make and some things coming up. We can keep the discussion going for a little bit here. Excuse me. I need to take a quick drink here. The holidays are here, so I'm looking forward to spending tomorrow with the family and my son. He's 8 years old. He's a D&D player, but he's so excited about Christmas. I can't wait for that tomorrow. It's Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day. But after Christmas Day, the 26th, we're going to be back on. I'm going to be on doing a prelude at 7 p.m. Eastern, I believe, or I may have pushed it back to 8. It's on the event list. I'm sorry. let me take a look real quick. I made it 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern. I pushed it back. 8 to 9 p.m. I'm going to do a prelude for our adventure on Thursday. It's our brand new group of firsts. Terrain is all up for it. It goes back to the combat at Winchester's Bastion, the big invasion scenario I did about a couple months ago, and we had a discussion on a Gabbin 2 weeks ago about all the new first level characters everyone was playing. I'm just going to do a refresher for everyone and show some new pics of the winter scenery, terrain, and for this in Principality Ulick. We'll do that on Wednesday night, the 26th. We'll go over and just discuss what we have in store for this new group of firsts. It's going to be a lot of RP because everyone, remember, we do joint experience groups. We allow everyone to play. They don't play them all at the same time, but everyone has 3 characters, and depending on the mission or the group gets formed, gives a lot of variety. It also helps me if someone's not there for an evening to do fill-ins, but I usually like splitting up the group into multiple missions. So we'll see a lot of pre role play on that Thursday night. It's just called Beginnings. That starts at 7:30 on Thursday, and that'll run our normal 4-hour course. This is all Eastern Standard Time, guys. You know, for those of you on the East Coast, you know, unlike Sky, get through 6-hour difference. So, but 5-hour, I think it is. So we're going to do that on Thursday. We're going to start that. Everyone's available. Normally we have family stuff going on, but we are able to get the whole playing group together. So on the 27th, we're going to start the new firsts. We've been really talking about it. Bill's got all the figures painted up for it. I'll show all that in the prelude. Looking really forward to doing that in the new group of firsts. And then, we were talking about a topic for next week. So I was going to do a year in review. And then Mark came to me and said, "Don't do that right now. We've been streaming for like 6 months, and it's been fantastic support, man, and unbelievable followers. I never thought we'd be over 400 now. It's fantastic and great subscribers, and I'm just humbled by it all. And I think our players are too. I got books everywhere." All right, I think that's downstairs. All right, so what we're going to do... Oh, here it is. It's my background, my backdrop. All right, on our main classes book, we're going to do, next week, we're going to keep it into the delving on the classes we use, because we use so many different unique classes. We did a general thing months ago, and that was when our viewership was like in half of what it is now. But here's our list of classes that we allow in our 1E, 2E game. As you can see, it's a lot. And you can see Elementalist is on here, right? And that counts all 6 of them. We got Wild Mage, got other stuff on there. But we're going to do next Sunday. Mark came up with the idea, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty good after the Elementalists. We're going to do delving into the damage dealers. So we're going to talk about one class that's in Unearthed Arcana that we don't use out of Unearthed Arcana. We use it the Dragon magazine version of it, written by Gary Gygax back in '83 before, and we'll tell that story again. So we're going to talk about Cavaliers. We're going to talk about a class Bill created that's a Foot Knight version of a Cavalier. It's kind of like the less noble status one. It's called a Saxon. We're going to talk about an old Dragon magazine article that we used. Tom just created one, just played one on Thursday night, the Duelist. And then and I haven't mentioned him tonight, but here we go. Tom, who I haven't mentioned yet. We're going to talk about the damage dealer of them all, the Archer. By Leonard Lakofka, right? So, kudos, Leonard. I mentioned you again. So, we're going to talk about the Archer class. Those 4 classes next week. And they all are major damage dealers. We'll go into discussion on them about how did we limit them? How did they get to be the mass damage dealers in melee and range combat that they are? The evolution of them, taking them from old school, articles to, a player character class. Yes. So those are the 4: Archer, Duelist, Cavalier, and Saxon. Those 4 classes that we have played. We'll do a delving into the damage dealers next week on Sunday. Hopefully I'll have some of my guys actually here with me joining in on the discussion like I normally have. So, one thing, Great Net Spellbook. Alright. There's another Libram out there, and we'll get to this some point in the near future. But, yes, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Rox. Happy holidays for everyone, everything. I appreciate the new follow. Hopefully this is very informative for you. Like I said, contact me if you want any assistance or want any emails. I can send them out. So keep a lookout for this in the Wild Mage. There's a net, okay, the Wild Mage class that we have. We'll talk about the Wild Mage sometime in the near future. There's a net Libram of Wild Magic as well out there, which is good for the Wild Mage. So you want to pick that up if you can find it, to create your 2nd edition Wild Mage, because right next to, out of your Tome of Magic, right before page 9 is page, okay, right at page 5 and 4 is the rules on Wild Mages, okay, right before the Elementalist, and the caster table and the variation tables all there. So, alright, so you don't need to subscribe, Rox, because you're a follower, okay? You see the little like chat box somewhere that should be under our picture, right? And then you go over here, whispers, okay? That chat box there, okay? Then find that and then type Lord Gazumba in there, and then just send me a whisper with your email address, and I will email you the information. That simple. Okay, and if you have trouble with it, I can help you through that too. But it'll be it looks like a bubble, message bubble, and that's a whisper box. You can send me a whisper there, and I'll only one to get it, and then I'll send you whatever you'd like on that. So, and thanks a lot for joining up to Twitch to watch this. I hope this really helped you out. You reach me on this, whatever site you reach me on, whether it was Cannon Fire, Sages, AD&D, the second AD&D one, whatever one it was, I try and make ads on all the ones that I'm on. We have a Discord server too, another announcement. So if you go down to the bottom of the panels, if you're on a PC, scroll down, there's all sorts of pictures there, adventures and stuff, but at the very bottom of the panels, there is a Discord server here, okay? It tells you you want to join the Cannon Fire site on Facebook. Then go under announcements and a min tab, either way, I think it's announcements, and there's a Discord server log on. Hit that, and it's free. It's our Discord server. It's called Greyhawk Online. It's anyone who's a member of the Cannon Fire site is welcome to join that. I have our own Lord Gazumba chat channel and ad channel on there on that server that's hosted by Brian Blumklotz's Greyhawk Online thing. It's great. Thank you so very much, Brian. But you can get we pop up ads on there, and there's actually a chat channel there. So if anyone wants to chat with me, so you can. I know Sprocket, but I know if you want to use Discord, I can get it to you. I can get you that information if you want it. So that you can go on there, Sprocket. It's not a problem. I'll get it for you. But the Discord server, there's a lot of big names on there in the world of Greyhawk. Anna's on there. I guess Anna wasn't available tonight. She said she was going to come on, but she may have been tied up. So there's a lot of people. Anna Meyer, who is the great Greyhawk map maker that we've all become friends with, is on that site. She's on there a lot. A lot of the great old school D&D, Greyhawkery and Greyhawk Grognerd, and all those are all on that Discord server. So a wealth of knowledge exists in that world for people that have huge amounts of knowledge in the world of Greyhawk and just in general Dungeons and Dragons. I'm checking right now to see what's up. So there's plenty of things you can see and do on that site. So please feel free to join up on the. The only thing they ask is that there we go. So hey, thanks, Tom. So we got a resubscription. Thank you so very much. So I think that'll bring us to an end for this evening. Hopefully everyone found it very informative. I really appreciate you hopping on. I thought it would be around this range for viewers. Know this, that in synopsis, this has been our first year of doing the first 6 to 7 months. We started really in June and became an affiliate, I want to say beginning of August. So we've only been an affiliate for like 5 months. That's why we have no one who has a 6-month subscription yet, because we don't have an affiliate that we haven't been affiliate that long, and it's been a real blast. And I'm so glad we brought our old school 1E 2E game to you. I know a majority of my players are having such a fun time with it, and we have a lot of wealth, a lot of information, a lot of old school stuff to bring out to everyone, and we want to share it, because we're not doing this for a living. We all have real jobs. We're doing this for the love of the game, the love of World of Greyhawk, and the love of Dungeons and Dragons, particularly the old school. So that's why we tag everything old school 1E 2E when we do adventures. But please feel free to ask, Rocks, if you're having problems. I'll stay on. I won't just jump off. I'll stay on the chat here. If you can't, whisper me and we'll figure it out. And I need your email, and I'll send you some stuff that'll help you out with it. But remember, the vid's up too, so you can watch the vid for 60 days. The vid's going to be up for you to watch, so you can refer back to this if you need to as well. So anyone with any final questions or comments? I want to say happy holidays to everyone. I want to say Merry Christmas, and then I'll say happy holidays. So anyone have any final questions for me? Thank you so very much for watching tonight. We will continue this, like I said, Wednesday night, day after the 26th. We're going to Prelude. It'll be an hour long. That's it, from 8 to 9 p.m. on our adventure for Thursday, 7:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. That'll be the new venture called Beginnings. New group of firsts. A lot of RP. There may not even be any combat at all the first night. We'll see. And then next Sunday at 7:30 p.m. we will be doing delving into the damage dealers. So thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. I went solo tonight. I appreciate that, man. All right, Rocks. It looks like you got it. See, perfect. There you go. I'm gonna send you. Some stuff. All right. When we get off here, I'll send you the Great Net books. I'll send you this listing I have. And then, like I said, you can just stay in touch with me anytime you want. If you're a Twitch, one more time, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can easily become Twitch Prime. It's free. You just link your Amazon account to your Twitch account. Very simple to do. You do that under the sub button, and then you become a Twitch Prime member. And what does Twitch Prime do for you? It gives you one free subscription to any channel you want every 30 days. It doesn't cost you anything extra beyond your Amazon subscription for the year. It's basically, and the channels that have that get a benefit from it. They get compensated for that membership fee. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it, Rox. You can catch next Sunday. That's great. Thank you. Thank you all, and I will see you all. And I'll go to an end screen here. I will see you all only a couple nights. Once again, hope you and your family have a great and happy holidays. I'm looking forward to it with my family, and enjoy the holiday season. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Sprocket. Enjoy your time with your family, and enjoy your time, just spirit of giving out there. Thanks, Gagger, for the donation. Like I said, I'm going to give that to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and we'll see you on Wednesday night. Remember, there's only one world that we love, and that's World of Greyhawk. But it doesn't matter what edition you play. It doesn't matter in Dungeons and Dragons if you play first, second, third, 3.5, fourth, or fifth. It's still Dungeons and Dragons in any form. Keep on playing. As I'm Jay, aka Lord Gazumba. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. See you soon.
From the edge of the sea, from the edge of time, beckons a destination. Ancient, hidden, forgotten. This is Harbor Town. Harbor Town is an all-new series from Miniature Building Authority, the leader in tabletop gaming scenery. Unique, flexible, and playable, Harbor Town will take your games